Hello, my name is Robert Helms and I'm on the Software Engineering and Game Development degree year 2. I've created a demo in Unreal Engine 4 demonstrating some FPS mechanics. I thought it would be useful to show these mechanics in the context of an actual game, so I created a 3D maze game with combat elements. Okay, so I'll just show you the game here. So you start out and you've got first and third person views for an unarmed character, and you got the animation sets as appropriate, and basically when you pick up a weapon it switches at animation sets, and you've also got the first person view of your gun. So I've also made some custom projectiles which you can fire in first person or third. The player also has a shield that they can activate by holding the Q key, as you can see. So this takes damage and is eventually deactivated through taking a certain amount of damage, in which case you're vulnerable. And after a short recharge period, you can start using the shield again. So one cool feature I put in, considering it was a maze game, and I thought this might be applicable to FPS shooters in general, I actually created a drone that the player can pilot and switch between camera modes. So if you go up to this information here, it tells you, look above, that is your blue drone. Press 3 to toggle it, press I and K to move. So the blue drone's up there. So anytime I want to toggle the drone, I can just press 3. And this switches me to the drone's camera. And I can move the drone around with the mouse. And I can move it forward with I, back with K. So in the context of the maze game, this is useful to looking around the maze and seeing just where you want, what pathways are open to you. Basically so you can navigate the maze more easily. But it also might be useful in an FPS game, so you can see where enemies are hiding and stuff like that. So here we've got a custom enemy that I've created just for testing, and it's basically using the shield technology. So in order to defeat the enemy, you have to first weaken the shield, and while it's temporarily having to recharge, then you can damage and kill the enemy. This enemy is actually a fire type creature that's on fire, so if you get too close to it, it'll burn you and can kill you. So I've also put a respawn feature into the game, so basically when the player dies, a certain amount of time passes and they get respawned, and the same with the player's initial start weapon should respawn here. So I'll just demonstrate. So as you can see there, I've actually created some asteroids, which quite a useful mechanic for like opening up new pathways in the area, or setting traps for the player. I thought this might be applicable in an FPS multiplayer game that has that kind of environmental dangers. For example, I'll show you a trap up ahead. The asteroids hit and you fall to your death. So one interesting feature I put in was my own tornado, as I know there's going to be a tornado in the FPS multiplayer game. So this is actually a particle effect that I've created from scratch in Unreal, and it's basically got a few layers. It's got like kind of the bigger particles for kind of the center of the tornado, and it's got like kind of smaller accompanying particles around it. And it's also got kind of layers of different shades, like a darker and a lighter, and all the particles move in a rotation around the Z-axis. That axis like an actual tornado. And as you can see there, it needs a bit more balancing, but it actually sucks objects and characters into it and kills the characters. So for example, if I get too close, I'll actually get sucked in, and I'm going around the tornado. This could also be quite useful for enemies as well, as you can draw them into the tornado to be killed. So the tornado's also got a simple AI movement pattern. It basically just moves randomly in a specified radius, which also helps the actual shape of the tornado. At the moment, it looks a bit smoky, so in the future, I would like to actually have a cloud that kind of comes down into a tornado, because at the top, if this is kind of like a detached tornado, so it looks a bit smoky at the top. So that's something I could work on for the future. One other small feature that I put in was my own mines. So basically, it's quite simple little script. So when you walk over the mine, it creates an explosion, particle effect, and then kills you basically. But if you're actually raising your shield, it will just deactivate your shields, and so you can survive it basically. So when you reach the end of the maze, you actually get a jetpack, which is I'm not an artist, so it's a very simple shape. So you walk over the trigger and it gets added to your skeleton. And now this is just a simple modification of the player's gravity. So when the player jumps, it kind of just simulates a jetpack boost effect, really. So like so. So you can basically jump higher. And obviously, if I had a proper animation set up, you'd see like the fire coming out at the bottom of the jetpack. I also later added some additions to the drone. So I also added input from the J and L keys, so you can actually move down and up. And I also added a first person mode to the drone, so now if you toggle 1, you can switch to your first person mode. So the idea of the drone is basically you can get in places that the player can't, possibly to activate switches or secret areas and stuff like that. So for example, I created a test area here,